In this video we will talk about the budget for the fiscal year 2023 to 24 in Pakistan. The budget was presented by the Finance Minister on June 12, 2023. The economic outlook for Pakistan in the coming year is challenging. The country is facing a number of headwinds, including high inflation, rising interest rates, and a widening current account deficit. The government has set a number of targets for the budget, including achieving economic growth of 3.5%, reducing inflation to 21%, increasing tax revenue to Rs 9,200 billion, reducing the budget deficit to 6.54% of GDP. The budget for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 is a challenging one. The government faces a number of headwinds, but it has set ambitious targets. It will be interesting to see how the government performs in the coming year. Now let's start with what is a budget. A budget is a financial plan that details how the government intends to raise money and how it intends to spend it for a certain period of time, usually a year. It is a way for the government to track its spending and make sure that it is not spending more money than it is taking in. This definition can be broken down into two parts. How the government intends to raise money. This includes taxes, fees, and other sources of revenue. How the government intends to spend it. This includes things like education, healthcare, infrastructure, and defense. Next, importance of a budget. First of all, a budget provides clarity and control. A budget can help you see where your money is going. This can help you make informed decisions about your spending and make sure that you are not overspending in any one area. It can also help you set financial goals and track your progress towards achieving them. Second, a budget can help you track your income and expenses. This can help you identify areas where you can save money. For example, if you see that you are spending a lot of money on eating out, you can make a plan to cook more meals at home. There are many benefits to having a budget. Some of the benefits include financial peace of mind. Knowing where your money is going can give you peace of mind. You will no longer have to worry about overspending or not being able to pay your bills. Increased savings. A budget can help you save money. By tracking your expenses, you can see where you can cut back and free up more money to save. Achievement of financial goals. A budget can help you achieve your financial goals. By setting goals and tracking your progress, you are more likely to reach your financial goals. In addition to these benefits, a budget can also help you avoid debt, prepare you for unexpected expenses, give you more control over your spending, help you make better financial decisions, set you up for financial success in the long term. The pie chart shows the breakdown of the total outlay of Pakistan for the fiscal year 2023-24. The outlay is divided into 5 main categories: privatization proceeds, bank borrowing, non-bank borrowing, net revenue, and net external receipts. Privatization proceeds are expected to contribute Rs 15 billion to the total outlay. This amount will be raised through the sale of state-owned enterprises. Bank borrowing is expected to contribute Rs 3.1 trillion to the total outlay. This amount will be borrowed from commercial banks. Non-bank borrowing is expected to contribute Rs 1.9 trillion to the total outlay. This amount will be borrowed from non-bank financial institutions, such as insurance companies and pension funds. Net revenue is expected to contribute Rs 6.9 trillion to the total outlay. This amount will be generated through taxes, duties, and other levies. Net external receipts are expected to contribute Rs billion to the total outlay. This amount will be received from foreign donors and investors. The pie chart shows that the government plans to finance the majority of the total outlay through borrowing. This is a significant increase from the previous fiscal year, when the government financed only about 50% of the total outlay through borrowing. The increase in borrowing is due to the government's need to finance a widening fiscal deficit. The pie chart also shows that the government plans to raise a significant amount of revenue through privatization proceeds. This is a positive development, as it will help to reduce the government's reliance on borrowing. However, it is important to note that the government has a poor track record of privatization, so it is not clear how much revenue will actually be raised from this source. Overall, the pie chart shows that the government plans to finance the total outlay for 2023-24 through a combination of borrowing, privatization proceeds, and net revenue. The government's reliance on borrowing is a cause for concern, but the increase in privatization proceeds is a positive development. It remains to be seen whether the government will be able to achieve its revenue targets, but the pie chart provides a useful overview of the government's financing plans for the coming fiscal year. Pakistan will borrow from external according to Dawn News from China, IMF, Saudi Arabia, international bonds, and international commercial loans. Pakistan is expected to borrow a significant amount of money from external sources in the coming year. According to a report by Dawn News, the country will borrow around $15 billion from China, the IMF, Saudi Arabia, international bonds, and international commercial loans. The report says that the bulk of the borrowing will come from China, which has already agreed to lend Pakistan $4.5 billion. The IMF is also expected to provide Pakistan with a loan of around $3 billion, while Saudi Arabia has pledged to give Pakistan $1 billion. In addition to these loans, Pakistan is also expected to raise around $2 billion through the issuance of international bonds. The remaining $4 billion will come from international commercial loans. The government of Pakistan is borrowing this money to finance its current account deficit and to meet its debt obligations. The government is also hoping that the borrowing will help to boost economic growth. However, the high level of borrowing could also lead to a debt crisis. The government will need to ensure that it uses the money wisely and that it is able to repay the loans on time. The government of Pakistan needs to take steps to reduce its reliance on external borrowing. The government should focus on increasing exports and attracting foreign investment in order to generate more foreign exchange. Now let's talk about budget deficit. The total tax revenue for Pakistan in 2023-2024 is estimated to be 9,200 billion rupees. Non-tax revenue is estimated to be 2,963 billion rupees. This brings the total gross revenue receipt to 12,163 billion rupees. The provincial share of this revenue is estimated to be 5,276 billion rupees. This leaves the net revenue receipt at 6,887 billion rupees, which you can see in previous slide of total outlay. Now the remaining the government will borrow from international countries that include Saudi Arabia and China and from IMF. The budget deficit for Pakistan in 2023-2024 is estimated to be 6.54% of GDP. This means that the government will need to borrow this amount of money in order to finance its expenditures. The budget deficit is a result of the government's spending being greater than its revenue. This can be caused by a number of factors, such as economic slowdown, rising debt, and increased government spending. The budget deficit is a major concern for the Pakistani government. It is a sign that the government is not managing its finances effectively. The deficit can also lead to higher inflation and interest rates. The government is taking steps to reduce the budget deficit. These steps include increasing taxes, reducing spending, and attracting foreign investment. However, it is likely that the budget deficit will remain a challenge for the Pakistani government in the years to come. The government of Pakistan needs to take steps to reduce its reliance on external borrowing. The government should focus on increasing exports and attracting foreign investment in order to generate more foreign exchange. We have seen the overview of budget and total outlay and budget deficit. Now let's look at the details of each expenditure category. The total expenditure for the next fiscal year is Rs 9.5 trillion. The largest chunk of the expenditure, 7.3 trillion rupees, will go towards interest payments. This is due to the high level of debt that Pakistan is currently facing. The next largest chunk of the expenditure is 1,804 billion rupees, which equals to 1.8 trillion rupees, will go towards defense affairs and services. Other major areas of expenditure include subsidies, pension, grants and transfers to provinces, running of civil government, and emergency provision. Here is a breakdown of the expenditure by sector. Development and net lending is 1.09 trillion rupees. 1,074 billion, which equals 1.1 trillion rupees, is allocated for subsidies. And for pension, 714 billion rupees. 1.5 trillion rupees is allocated for grants and transfers to provinces. 714 billion rupees for running of civil government. 200 billion rupees for emergency provision and others. The total expenditure of rupees 14,460 billion, which equals to 14.46 trillion. But the high level of interest payments is a major concern for the government. The government is trying to reduce the debt burden by increasing revenue and cutting spending. However, this will take time. The government is also facing pressure to increase development spending. This is necessary to boost economic growth and create jobs. However, the government will need to find ways to finance this spending without increasing the debt burden. The government is facing a number of challenges, including high debt, low economic growth, and rising inflation. The government is trying to reduce the debt burden by increasing revenue and cutting spending. The government is also facing pressure to increase development spending. Let's dive into the drivers of growth. Agriculture sector. The agriculture sector is one of the most important sectors in Pakistan's economy. It provides a livelihood for millions of people and contributes significantly to the country's GDP. In his budget speech, the finance minister announced a number of measures to support the agriculture sector. These measures include increasing the limit of agricultural loans from Rs 1,800 billion to Rs 2,250 billion. This is a major boost for the agriculture sector. It will allow farmers to access more credit, which they can use to invest in their businesses. This will help to improve productivity and profitability, and it will also help to create jobs. Allocating Rs 30 billion to switch 50,000 agricultural tube wells to solar energy. This is a move towards sustainable agriculture. It will help to reduce the cost of electricity for farmers, and it will also help to reduce pollution. Abolishing all taxes and duties on the import of quality seeds. This will make it easier for farmers to access high-quality seeds. This will help to improve crop yields, and it will also help to reduce the risk of crop failure. Abolishing customs duty on the import of saplings. This will make it easier for farmers to import new varieties of saplings. This will help to improve the quality of crops, and it will also help to increase the variety of crops that can be grown in Pakistan. Allocating Rs 5 billion for the agro industry. This funding will be used to support the development of the agro industry. This includes the production of processed foods, beverages, and other agricultural products. This will help to create jobs and boost exports. Allocating Rs 10 billion for low-interest loans to small landlords in cooperation with provincial governments. This funding will be used to provide low-interest loans to small landlords. This will help them to improve their agricultural practices and increase their incomes. Next, the IT and IT-enabled services sector is one of the fastest-growing sectors in Pakistan's economy. In the budget for 2023-2024, the government has announced a number of measures to promote the growth of this sector. Low income tax rate of 0.25% for IT exports till 2026. The government has announced a low income tax rate of 0.25% for IT companies with a turnover of up to Rs 250 million. This will provide a significant boost to the growth of small and medium-sized IT businesses. Exemption from sales tax registration. The government has exempted IT companies from sales tax registration and returns for freelancers with export volume up to $24,000 per year. This will reduce the compliance burden on IT companies and make it easier for them to do business. Duty-free import of software and hardware. The government has allowed duty-free import of software and hardware for IT companies. This will help to reduce the cost of doing business for IT companies and make it more affordable for them to acquire the latest technology. Automated exemption certificate for exporters of IT. The government has introduced an automated exemption certificate system for exporters of IT services. This will make it easier for IT companies to export their services and avoid paying sales tax. SME status and concessional income tax rates for the IT sector. The government has given SME status to IT companies with a turnover of up to Rs 800 million. This will allow IT companies to avail of concessional income tax rates. Venture capital fund with Rs 5 billion. The government has announced a venture capital fund with a corpus of Rs 5 billion to support the growth of the IT sector. This will provide much needed funding to IT startups and help them to scale up the businesses. Reduction of sales tax on IT services from 15% to 5%. The government has reduced the sales tax on IT services from 15% to 5%. This will make IT services more affordable for businesses and consumers. Professional training for 50,000 IT graduates. The government has announced a program to provide professional training to 50,000 IT graduates. This will help to bridge the skills gap in the IT sector and create more jobs. The government's measures to promote the growth of the IT and IT-enabled services sector are a welcome step. These measures will help to create jobs, boost exports, and attract foreign investment. Next, small and medium enterprises, SMEs. The government has announced a number of measures to support SMEs in the next financial year. These include reducing the tax rate for banks that lend to SMEs. This measure will make it more attractive for banks to lend to SMEs, which will help to improve their access to finance. Increasing the turnover threshold for tax concession for SMEs. This measure will make it easier for more SMEs to qualify for tax concessions, which will help them to save money. Providing subsidized loans and credit rating agency for SMEs. This measure will help to make it easier for SMEs to get the financing they need to grow their businesses. Restarting the SMEs Asan Finance Scheme. This scheme provides subsidized loans to SMEs, which will help them to access finance at a lower cost. These measures are designed to make it easier for SMEs to get the financing they need to grow their businesses. They are also expected to create jobs and boost economic growth. Next, women empowerment. The government has also announced a number of measures to empower women in the next financial year. These include allocating 5 billion rupees for women empowerment, skill development, cheap loans and training for women. This funding will be used to provide women with access to training, skills development, and cheap loans. This will help them to start their own businesses or to improve their existing businesses. Lowering taxes rates for women entrepreneurs. This measure will make it easier for women entrepreneurs to save money and to reinvest their profits in their businesses. These are just some of the measures that the government has announced to support SMEs and women empowerment in the next financial year. These measures are designed to create jobs, boost economic growth, and improve the lives of women across Pakistan. Next, industrial and export sectors. The government has announced a number of measures to boost the industrial and export sectors. These measures include Export Council of Pakistan to be formed and meet quarterly. This council will be responsible for formulating policies and strategies to promote exports. It will be made up of representatives from the government, the private sector, and academia. The council will meet quarterly to discuss progress on the export front and to make recommendations for further action. Sales tax exemption for online purchase of minerals and metals. This will make it easier for businesses to import these essential inputs. Currently, businesses have to pay sales tax on the online purchase of minerals and metals. This exemption will reduce the cost of doing business for these businesses, which will help them to be more competitive. The launch of an export facilitation scheme. This scheme will provide financial assistance to exporters to help them with market research, product development, and export promotion. The scheme will be administered by the Export Development Authority, EDA. Businesses that are eligible for the scheme will be able to apply for grants to cover the cost of these activities. A reduction in the minimum tax for listed companies to 1%. This will make it easier for businesses to list on the stock exchange, which will boost investment in the industrial sector. Currently, the minimum tax for listed companies is 2.5%. This reduction will make it more attractive for businesses to list on the stock exchange, which will provide them with access to more capital. A reduction in regulatory duty and customs duty for textile and other industries. This will make it cheaper for businesses to produce and export these goods. Currently, regulatory duty and customs duty are imposed on a number of inputs used by the textile and other industries. This reduction will reduce the cost of production for these businesses, which will make them more competitive. Next, overseas Pakistanis. The following incentives will be given to promote remittances. No tax on buying property with foreign remittance. Diamond card for remitters of over $50,000 with benefits. Lottery scheme for remittance card holders. Next, education. The steps that will be taken for the education sector in the next financial year. 135 billion rupees will be spent on Higher Education Commission. 5 billion on Pakistan Endowment Fund for scholarships. 10 billion on laptop scheme for students. 5 billion on sports development in education. Next, youth entrepreneurship. 50% tax cut for new businesses started by youth. 10 billion is allocated for small loans for youth. And 5 billion for skills training for youth. Next, encouragement of construction activities. In the slide you can see the allocation of amount that the government will give for construction, and also 450 billion rupees to BISP, Benazir Income Support Program, to combat poverty, and 346 billion rupees for cash transfer program, 55 billion for education scholarship schemes. Next, energy sector. The government will focus on promoting the use of local coal and solar panel to save import cost and reduce inflation. And the coal power plants will use local coal and solar panel materials will be tax-free. And most important, the foreign suppliers will store oil products in Pakistan for easy access. Now you can see the table of revised budget 2022 to 2023 and budget of fiscal year 2024 to 2024. Next, Public Sector Development Program, PSDP. The PSDP 2023 to 24 goals are: finish 80% of projects, attract federal direct investment, FDI, improve infrastructure, reduce regional gaps, completion of CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and SZEs. Addressing climate change, invest in social sector, science and IT. In addition to these, Finance Minister also announced some other initiatives to boost the economy. Tax policy, support IT, remittances, local industries, construction, small and medium-sized enterprises, agriculture, youth, digitize economy, tax rich, help poor, discourage non-filers. Income tax, higher withholding tax on supplies, contracts, and services. Higher super tax on rich and high-income sectors. Relief measures were also discussed by the Finance Minister in his budget speech, along with the other measures. These include relief for government employees, pensioners, and low-income people like higher salaries, allowances, pensions. Debt relief for widows, and higher deposit limit in saving schemes. Thank you for joining me in this video where we explored the budget of Pakistan for the fiscal year 2023 to 24. I hope you learned something new and interesting. Please leave your comments and feedback below and don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified of our future